I'd like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for August 12, 2020 to order. The time is now 6 p.m. We'll start with our roll call of council members. I'll do this slowly so it gives you a chance to unmute. Aaron Moberg. Here. Gary Molinar.
Here.
Melissa Beaton.
Here.
Mark Holst.
Here.
Mary Hudson.
Here.
Iris Carias.
Here.
And Richard Brocksmith.
Here.
Great, thank you. Under our consent agenda tonight, we have items A, B, C, D, E, and F, and those are council meeting minutes, payroll checks, claims, and two agreements. So.
I would move for approval of our consent agenda.
Second. Motion by Mary. I think I heard a second by Aaron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Could I bring up one point
Sure.
of order?
Sure.
Item F is an approval of a settlement agreement.
Okay.
And I just wanted to bring that up because what this is a settlement agreement from, I believe it's from the Maddox Creek area. The neighborhood was a little alarmed, I believe, with about a year ago. A homeowner had taken out some city trees. And so it's my understanding that that is what this is for. And I just wanted to put that on the record so that the homeowners know that the city has recouped its expenses and its costs.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so that, again, we'll do that again. So motion by Mary and a second by Aaron. And all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you so much. All right. Under reports tonight, item A is our review of emails from the public, and Peter Donovan is going to read those for us. Peter.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, as long as the state restrictions on how City Council has to meet remotely, it's been difficult for public comment. It's difficult to accommodate for public comment. So what City Council has done is provided an email address, council@mountvernon.gov, where residents can write in and have their voice heard at the next City Council meeting on whatever topic they want to address Council. So since your last meeting, there have been 3 emails, and I will read those for you. From Kathleen Roach-Zushko, and she writes, "Dear Mount Vernon City Council members, I would just like to add my voice to the chorus of citizens who want to make sure that the training of our fine police officers includes many hours of diversity training. We don't want the horrible police-involved shootings around the country to be duplicated in Mount Vernon. Also, I would encourage you to add more social workers and/or mental health care professionals to the staff. I believe we only have so law enforcement isn't forced to act in that capacity, i.e. so the police officers aren't made to attempt to perform duties for which they aren't properly trained. Mental health care professionals can often de-escalate situations, only made worse by the presence of an armed police officer. Thank you." The next email was sent from Andra Heath. She writes, "I look forward to seeing what changes are being made for the Black and Brown Lives Matter movement. Mayor Boudreau has been quite insightful and helpful to our little group in explaining where we are now and where she would like to go in the future. I believe she is piloting our city in the right direction. Thank you. Specifically, I would like to support her efforts for increased budget and action in, number 1, funding more social workers to work with the police department. 2, more outreach and showing appreciation for our minorities, starting with Blacks and Latinos. Maybe provide celebrations honoring their cultures, which would help to educate all of us. Also, a commitment to after-school programs, both in person and online options. But most importantly, I would like a different kind of oversight for police officers. Currently, conduct oversight comes from their supervisors and the chief of police, putting them in an awkward position with those they rely on daily. Or is it handled, or it is handed to a neighboring police department to research our department's possible transgressions. Instead, we should be enlisting the expertise of other city workers, human resources, fire department, city lawyers, and journalists. Researching police conduct should not rest solely with other police officers when they depend on each other to keep them safe on the job. Of course, they will side with the fellow officers. They have to. This responsibility should include others outside this need for safety network, taking the pressure off these officers and their supervisors. Thank you for hearing my concerns. And the last email was from Iola Ratcliffe, Mount Vernon. And Iola writes, upon hearing the horror stories of police brutality and misconduct from across the nation, I feel most fortunate to live in Mount Vernon, where the police can be considered the friends you need in times of stress and tragedy. I'm saddened to know that some folks have lost confidence in all police. In the many years I've lived in Mount Vernon, I've heard only good things about our police and personally have experienced their caring courtesy. I am comforted by the knowledge that they are there if ever I should need their help. After writing the above, I realize I may be part of the problem, where we expect our police to function in ways for which they were never trained. If so, perhaps more training is indicated, or some of the burden could be borne by specially trained additions to the force. And that is all of the public comment for this period.
Okay, thank you, Peter. I don't know if council's aware of any other emails. I think that's all of them. All right. Thank you to Melissa, Councilmember Beaton, for making sure we got those and forwarded. Appreciate that. Okay, item B under reports tonight is we're going to do 3 different department reports. And so Esco Bell is our Public Works Director, and Esco is up first. And so I'm going to share my screen and share some of his slides as well. Go ahead, Esco.
Thank you, Mayor. If you got those slides, I just...
If I get the right PowerPoint for you, sorry.
Right, no problem.
Go ahead and start, and then I will catch up. How about that?
All right. Well, I'm going to keep my report really brief because we have several items that are public works items on the regular agenda. And you folks have heard a lot about all the projects that we just got done on both the Riverside and College Way corridors. So I'll just have a couple items to say, starting with the Maddox Creek culvert, which is something the county is the lead on that, but we've worked with them for a couple of years, and that's a culvert that's 220 feet long. It's 6 feet in diameter, and it's located over there by Bonnie Ray Park, along where we built the LaVenture Anderson project. Anyway, that started a couple weeks ago, and so I just had a slide to show you. They were just digging some dirt out of there, and it's going along. It's a $400,000 project. We have approximately $500,000 of grant. The city has a commitment of $75,000 out of our stormwater utility, and the project will open up more than 2 miles of street. So that's really a good value for the citizens, and it's something that's been talked about for a lot of years. The second.
Sorry, Esco.
Sorry. You're right, Mayor.
All right, there we go.
The second thing I was going to mention was I had a photo of a BNSF. Okay. There's a nice little photo of us digging, the contractor digging that earth out to remove that culvert. So when they get done with that, they'll just make that match the existing contours, and then the stream will be free flowing in the bottom, and it'll be much better. Okay, and then the next one is a slide showing, next slide, Mayor. There, okay, so of course we've been working forever on the downtown flood protection project that is done. The downtown is removed from the 100-year floodplain. However, there's still a 70-foot gap before you close into the interstate highway, I-5, and it goes right over the top of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe mainline railroad tracks. It will be more important in the future as, more work's done and more levee work is done and holds more water in the river. We'll need to have this facility more for the future. But anyway, here's a slide showing us working with BNSF with a structure that fits 17 feet wide right over the top of the mainline tracks. And we just were out there with them on July 22nd. So we'll get that done. That turned out really well. And then we got 2 more slabs to build on either side, and we'll have everything we said we would do for this project complete. We're getting there real close. And this relationship with BNSF has really been good. For example, while we had the mainline tracks closed down to do this, we also were able to take our lining program where we line sewer lines. Well, there's one that's right in there parallel to the railroad tracks that's really hard to get to. And you can only get in there when you have BNSF crew with you. Anyway, we lined that at the time we did this project just a couple of weeks ago. Okay, thanks, Mayor. Next slide, please. And then the last thing, we just got the signal at 30th and College Way. Been working on that for a long time, seems like forever. And it's done and operating. And of course, you know, I noticed a slide of a signal. They all look the same, but boy, we sure are happy to have this one installed finally and working. And that's my report, unless you have any questions.
I'm gonna say thank you for that project at College Way and 30th. I just passed by this afternoon and it was so beautiful to see the red light and guys, and I really appreciate it because we as a neighbors for this district, we were waiting for that project to get done, and thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's
Thank
beautiful. Looks so beautiful.
And we'll get more traffic using it now that it's easier, and that'll help the other areas. So it's good.
Yes.
Thank you.
It sounds safer. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Iris. Any other questions for ESCO on anything in Public Works? Okay, great. Thank you. Next up is our police department update and Chief Chris Kamix on the Zoom. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot going on in the police department, but I thought I would just cover just a couple of topics for you here tonight. One I wanted to speak on is update on outreach services, because in recent council meetings, you guys approved the use of the motel voucher fund for Erin Von Themp, our outreach coordinator, to use as a tool in her work. And so currently under that program, she has 3 people in the system. 2 of those are waiting for treatment bed dates. So this is a tool to keep them in a place that she can keep with communication. It's got some stabilizing factors, and then they'll move to the next phase of their program and plan that they're on. Our park ranger identified another individual had a serious medical episode, and Erin was able to use the voucher program to get her some temporary placement as well. And then we have another woman who is probably going to be taking advantage of the program as an incentive to move into a detox program. And one of the things Erin said about this ability is it's really created for her, well, again, to use the word incentive for people out there who want the temporary housing to perform and do some things. So it's being used in that capacity, and it's working out really well so far. So thank you for your support of that program. A couple other things in her world. We have 2 student candidates for the internship program. We're looking at for winter time, so to add some staffing capacity for her, and then some teachable opportunities for the students. We recently purchased an iPad, and the intent of that is to be able to do tele-appointments or video conferencing appointments, and they'll be partnering with the Reach Center on that. So this will be an iPad that's it's locked down by our IS department, so you can only use certain features and programs. And then one of the clients can come to the Reach Center, check out the iPad, and then do their mental health or their substance abuse appointment or a medical appointment. Or even we talked yesterday with Commissioner Housen about the possibility with community court, the ability maybe for people who can't attend in person because of COVID to do video conferencing. So that's exciting there as well. And then her contingency management pilot project is getting off the ground. Again, this is incentivized research-based project where identifying individuals who are in different stages and providing them small incentives to meet their appointments, to do their tests, and see if that leads to a greater recovery rate long term. So as usual, Erin's doing magnificent work out there and really, I think, making a difference. Switching gears, talk about staffing. That's a pretty focal point for us. So right now we have 7 vacancies, 1 extended military leave and 1 extended injury leave. So just kind of looking at where things have been at, our retirements and resignations. Officer Chester Curry retired in March of this year after 24 years of service with the police department. Officer Rick Vandegreen retired June 30th with 21 and a half years of the police department. And then we had an unexpected departure with officers Ty Lubking and Dakota Hinton. They went to work for, they took a job with the Washington State Parks east of the mountains. Dakota came to us from the park system. And so looks like he decided to return to that with Ty. We have 1 officer who is a National Guard reservist and has been called up and will be scheduled for deployment through most of 2021. So we're making adjustments for that. On the injury reserve list, Lieutenant Mike Moore, who was out, returned to full duty on June 1st. However, unfortunately, on August 5th, Lieutenant Greg Booth suffered an injury to his arm off duty, and it's going to require some surgery, and he's going to be out till possibly October. So we're doing some shuffling and redistribution to compensate for that. Officers Abisai Espinosa and Gabe Bikeman both successfully completed their field training at the end of May, and they've been in solo status and doing a terrific job. And Officer Jordan Burt just completed his checkoff ride 2 days ago and is going solo as well. So he's super excited about that. And we're even more excited to have a solo body in that capacity. On our records specialist end, we currently have a candidate in the background process that we're looking at now, and we're hoping in the next couple of weeks to have a clearer picture of whether that person is potentially going to fill our open record specialist position. On a recruiting front, the COVID environment really hampered public safety testing's ability to do on-site, both written and physical testing. So they've had to make some modifications, which they've done. And so there was a period of time, February, March, part of April, where everything was just dormant. But now we're getting back online with that testing, and it's starting to put candidates for us to look at. So we've done 15 interviews since June. We did, Mayor Boudreau and I did offer a conditional offer to a candidate last week. However, we knew at that time that candidate was competing with Bellingham Police Department, and they just happened to be a few steps further than us. So they offered him a final job, which he took. So we lost that candidate. We have 1 candidate right now that is in backgrounds that we're looking at. And then from the interviews I just mentioned, we're looking at least 3 to move on to the next stage of the hiring process. So we're working feverishly to try to address those spots, but those are the challenges in front of us. So if you got any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, Chris, I got a couple. I think you broke up how many you said we were down as far as in the police?
Oh, I'm sorry. I currently have 7 vacancies, and then 1 is on extended military leave.
Okay. In light of all that's going on in Seattle, are we looking at any laterals?
We are.
Good. Okay. I think,
well, we're open for laterals, and we're reaching out to those in the respectful ways to do that. We don't currently have any laterals in process, but we're definitely aware that with Seattle's circumstance, there might even be people just graduating from the academy that won't have a job or position, that we would be happy to assess and evaluate if they'd be a good fit here.
Yeah, I think I would be in favor of doing that just because of the academies being down and everything else. I mean, it's going to take a long time before we get somebody in. So yeah, it's good to hear.
And Gary, that would also, we have a process for a lateral hire, and it still does go through the civil service process. So it's, vetted properly, just like any other hire. So just a reminder.
Yep.
Chief Kimmick, I had a couple questions or maybe some comments. We've received a number of emails from folks in the community that are concerned about the culture of the police department. And I'd like to say, when I first was elected to the council about 9.5 years ago, one of the first things I spoke with Chief Bergsma about at the time was, I said, Chief, I'd really like not to wake up in the morning and see that the Mount Vernon Police Department had been involved in some kind of use of force that wasn't justified. And he kind of went through a review of our policies, our training, both from the police side and the social side. And I know that yourself and the prior chiefs have all worked on making sure that we have a culture that's fair for the entire community. And I'm thinking maybe at one of our next meetings, because we continue to get these emails, maybe we could bring something up that shows how we go our hiring process, because we have a much more intense hiring process than I think probably any other agency in the state. And we do that with the background checks, the psychological checks, everything else that we go through to ensure that we're having the absolute best candidates and the best temperament to serve our community. I'm very comfortable with where our department is, and I think our department does a great job. And anybody that that has questions probably should do a ride along with one of the police officers. You'll see situations that they're put into on a daily basis, and it's just amazing the way they can de-escalate a potentially dangerous situation and keep control of that without use of force at all. And I'm just thinking maybe the public should see an overall view of our whole hiring process, what our policies are, and what we've done as a department to prevent having the kind of scenes that we've seen across the states.
No, I'd be happy to do that. Been responding to those types of questions and comments now for weeks. And one of the things that I tend to find, from those inquiring is that, their focus comes from, or their information comes from the national narrative that's there. And then when we speak to what's going on locally, there's quite a contrast to it. Just even around the issues of the force use. I was talking actually with a friend of mine here recently about these issues, and he brought up the question about force use, and he was surprised to hear that, for us, we average about 22,000 calls for service, and we average in those 22,000 calls for service only 61 incidents where force has to be used, and most of that type of force is usually some sort of handhold or restraint that way. It's not the violent stuff that is being portrayed on the media, and a lot of people are surprised by that. And so any opportunity I think that myself or the police department would have to speak to what we're doing and why we're doing it, how we're doing it, I'd be happy to do that.
So Chief Kimmick, I also know that every time there's use of force, there's also a review, and I don't know that the public's aware of that. So I think the covering all the reviews and the investigative things that we do to ensure that our officers have acted properly would be beneficial. Like I said, I've reviewed it all, I've seen it all, I've been on ride-alongs. I'm completely satisfied that our department, there's not a racist undertone in it. There isn't lack of good judgment. I think our department does a great job, but I know there's some concern from the public. And one of the things that keeps coming up is having basically a citizen review of police activities. And I don't agree with that at all. I think that our police officers have a job to do, and they have to make decisions in those while they're doing that job. And I'm pretty satisfied that once we go through the review process with your department or outside agencies, that it's been thoroughly vetted. And if improper activities have happened, discipline is handed down.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out to people too about the citizen review part is that there's also informal inspection pieces of citizens that are already intertwined in our department. We have over 50 volunteers that work right alongside our officers, and these are people that come from professional disciplines of teaching, of management and teaching, medical fields. I mean, across the board. And these people have been through our Citizens Academy program, so they have an awareness to our operational practices. And all of those individuals, I have great confidence if they saw something that they felt was improper, inappropriate, or especially a culture of that, first of all, they wouldn't put their time in at the agency to do it. And second of all, they would certainly bring that forward and call it into question. And so sometimes I don't think people think about some of those informal mechanisms that are there, but they're just as equally important.
So thanks, Mark, for bringing that up. If it's okay, Madam Chair, Ms. Mayor, sorry for jumping in. I've asked for something similar as well, and I would really like to see something a little bit more structured around something like the 21st Century Task Force findings, so that we compare what we're doing with the best management practices, and much like Councillor Holst, having seen how things operate, really pretty comfortable, but the problem being more of a layman, obviously, than the professionals we have is not really knowing exactly where those growth opportunities are for us. I've heard the chief say that this is a constant growth and evolution, and everybody's continually working to improve, and I fully believe that. But I don't know what the recommendations are from our own city about where those next areas of emphasis and improvement should be. And I think not only can we learn that, but our community could learn that if we have a structured conversation that compares current practices to recommended practices. And I expect we're very far along on that spectrum. But learning that, then I think we could figure out where there might be, slow, steady growth for the community. So I'd like to see that more of a structured discussion with the City Council.
Happy to have it however you want to have it.
And Councilman Broxbeth, I think what you're going to find is that in a lot of areas, Mount Vernon's leading the charge in policy, and other agencies are trying to follow suit with what we're doing.
Yeah, I've been to the Citizens Academy. I've already found that. I sure appreciate that. And I'd like to continue to be on that leading front. I know that there was a letter written from the Washington State Association of Chiefs and Sheriffs that talked about those areas of growth opportunity. And so I'd just really like to see what we're doing compared to those, best practices, and show that we are there, and those 2 or 3 or 4 things that we need to do, whether it's outreach, whether it's training, whether it's use of force, whether it's citizen review. I don't have any concerns, don't get me wrong, but I don't know what I don't know.
Okay, any other questions for Chief Kamek?
I'll make one other comment to the chief. Don't worry about us cutting your budget.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next up is item D. It's our fire department update. So Chief Bryce is here to give us an update as well.
Great, thank you, Mayor. And as I come into this, what I heard was the comment, the chief not to worry about the budget being cut. That's perfect. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that.
Wrong, chief.
So close. I'll start off by sharing my screen here. And hopefully you all can see that. And so with that, I'd like to start off with the fact that today, and hopefully this kicks into full screen here in a second. There we go. Today we received our newest ambulance. And so two of our crew members brought that back up from the place down there, Dia Centralia, this morning. And we're hoping to put this back into service or get this into service by this weekend. A few things we have to do to finish outfitting it, but there are small kind of pieces of that. So very excited to get the new ambulance into the city and start to get that into place. As you can see, contrast to one of our older engines behind it, it's kind of stands out as that new design, that new look. It looks very clean, very sharp, really adds that, has a lot of the features that are needed for the crews to operate. Whether that's interior with the ability to have good communication systems, the tracking system for GPS and our quickest routes, all the way into the back end of this. And I apologize if the pictures are kind of hard to see. So what I'd like to kind of describe just a little bit, as you're looking in the back end of this, you can see kind of that door that separates. That was one of those add-ons that we did as it started to be produced, as COVID started to kick in. We realized we didn't have a separation mechanism between the front compartment area and the back area. So now we have a door that can be sealed off that keeps the crews in the back separate, or in the front separated, in case there's anybody in the patient that might have any contaminant diseases. Along with that, if you look in that third picture to the right-hand side or far side, you see those black pieces along the wall. Those are vents that are part of the HEPA filter. So we also had a HEPA filter system added into that system to make sure that the air is circulated, again, keeping all of the contaminants out of the back end of the ambulance. So again, tried to find all the latest state-of-the-art things that's going to keep the crews and the patients that we carry in it safely. My plan is that once we can meet more in person is to show it to you live, show you again the load system that we have in it, also the airbag system that will lower the ambulance, making it easier to get patients in and out of, makes it safer for when we're loading and unloading, for crew members stepping in and out. That happens automatically when doors are opened, so there's no further action needed by the crews. It just lowers itself on down. So again, very excited to have that into the fleet. And then we'll have some more dialogue about the next ambulance that we're going to look to do that will match this to start getting our fleet up to where we need it to be. What this now allows us to do is move one of our older ambulances out of service, and that was a 1995 Ford that we got out of surplus many, many years ago. And so now that ambulance can be removed from the system, and we'll have 5 ambulances in total, 3 in the front line and 2 in reserve. That gives us a good depth right now, but we still have some older issues with the units that we took over from Central Valley Ambulance that we need to keep circulating through the system. So with that, any questions on the new ambulance or our plan for the next one? With that, kind of moving right along, update on some of our hiring. We've recently hired 5 individuals, 4 firefighter paramedics and 1 firefighter. Happy to report they're all reporting to the Fire Academy today. We went down there yesterday for an orientation and saw the procedures they had in place to protect the crews there. So they've done a great job there at the State Academy of making sure that they have every student at their own desk, spaced well over 6 feet apart. It's more closer to 10 feet apart. They changed the classroom from the standard classroom out to the airport hangar area, which was a lot larger room so they could accommodate that. Same thing, they've employed some of the procedures that the universities are using for their dorm room setups to make sure, again, that they've minimized that. So they're following some of those best practices that other institutions are using to keep everybody safe. They have some processes in place so that if somebody does come and report that they're not feeling well, how they're going to notify agencies, quarantine, plus isolate the individuals there, and get that feedback from the home units on how they want to handle their recruits while they're down there. So very comfortable, glad to see them continue to move forward. So again, we have a big class down there with 5 folks. which is good. That was going to bring our staffing back up to where it needed to be and fill the positions we needed. Why that becomes important to me is because today I received a letter from one of our firefighter paramedics of his letter of resignation that he's going to be moving on to another department. So we now have another hole in our system, which we'll be working with HR to establish a new list and keep our rank and files up where they need to be. Along the hiring line, we have extended a conditional job offer to a fire marshal candidate. He's going to come to us from a Washington department. I don't want to mention right now because I want to make sure that he's had the time to talk to all his folks that he needs to down there. But comes with a wealth of experience, has a great background from his time working with the military and the Navy to his current department, and very excited to have him come on board. We're looking to have him start on September 16th. He's currently in his medical psychological background checks right now, and we are looking to get that going and continue re-engaging in the fire prevention world and kind of streamlining our permit process. We've done a lot of work to get our SmartGov system functioning similar to what Development Services has done over the last years, and with a lot of help from Rebecca, I think we're there now. So with that, that's my update for today.
Any questions for Chief Price?
Yeah, I had a couple questions for Chief Price. First off, back in May, we applied for a SAFER grant that could fund up to, I think, 4 firefighters. Did we ever hear anything back on that?
They have not issued those awards yet. They had initially advertised that they were looking to start making those awards in July. They haven't awarded any of those yet. On that same vein, Councilmember Holtz, we also applied for an AFG COVID supplemental grant that was available to us for some additional equipment. That first round has closed. We did not receive anything in that first round. However, they did open up a second round of COVID supplemental AFG. What that's kind of signifying to me is that there's still some FEMA monies that I'm thinking is getting reallocated again through the federal system, making more monies available. So we are in the process of resubmitting those back for that same equipment.
Okay, thank you for the update on that. I had a question about a surplus vehicle. I understand we have a rescue vehicle that's up at Station 9 that we're, excuse me, Station 2, 9's down the road. Station 2 that we're looking to surplus. Could you give us a little information on that particular vehicle?
Yeah, and forgive me for not knowing the exact year, but it's approximately 22-year-old vehicle, and it was a rescue unit that was used as a support vehicle, meaning it didn't have the pump in it anymore, and we used it for air supply bottles, rehab units, to come out to the scene of our fires or where we would need them to kind of rehab the crews. With their evolution within the county, there's other departments now that have those rehab units. We have other systems to be able to supply the bottles to us. So we didn't feel we needed that in the system. So working through Gary, we're surplusing that, trying to get as much return on that in the market to see what's available out there from other departments that might be looking for to purchase it. We haven't had any formal bids. We have had some dialogue with one fire district currently here within the county that has expressed interest, but they haven't gotten back to us yet with what I would call a more confirmed offer piece of that, and then potentially some mutual aid sharing along with that. So we're waiting to hear back on that piece of it.
And that would be District 9, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's where the 9 came in at.
I figured as much.
So I would like to have council have a discussion about this vehicle and surplusing it to District 9. They do provide mutual aid for us, and I believe they are interested. I talked to one of their commissioners today. They're very interested in the vehicle. They know that there's money that needs to be put into it. They've got a old dilapidated Econoline van that is on its last leg. They're willing to put some money into this vehicle, but they can't pay a lot of money for it. So I think it's something that council should have a conversation about, either in a committee or in a formal setting. I think it would be appropriate to maybe discount that vehicle down for a neighboring department that provides mutual aid for City of Mount Vernon. If that vehicle's ever needed in Mount Vernon, if we have a big need, they're going to be here as mutual aid, and it will benefit the citizens of Mount Vernon.
Okay. Chief, we'll talk to 9. I don't know if they've approached us or Gary.
They've had some informal conversations with one of the battalion chiefs. I have no strong feelings one way or the other regarding that. My question would be more back for Kevin or the finance manager about what the surplusing process needs to be or how that works. We're happy to follow whatever we need to with regard to the equipment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know approximate value of that vehicle?
That's a tough answer. We've talked to a couple of the fire reps that deal with apparatus, and they have stated numbers all the way up from 50,000 all the way closer to 100,000, which in our mind is higher. I'm neutral on that from a standpoint of, as with anything, we want to get as much revenue back for the city as possible to help offset any of those costs and provide that. For me, is that the driver? Absolutely not. It's about making sure that we follow the right process and whatever rules govern ourselves for surplusing of equipment to that nature. But how much and where is, I don't have, like I said, a strong feeling one way or the other on that.
Gary Owens may be able to give us a little more insight on the condition of that vehicle and what kind of money would need to be put into it to make it functional again as a rescue unit.
So Chief, why don't you just reach out to District 9? I'm sure they have a chief and then you can talk face to face and we can bring that back when we have more information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Cool. Any other questions for Chief Price? Okay, great. Thank you. Item E tonight is our council member comments. Any council member comments tonight?
Actually, I have something I'd like to say.
Sure.
First off, I'd like to congratulate the mayor. She has been appointed to the AWC Board of Directors. That's a pretty esteemed appointment, so congratulations there.
Thank you.
And the second thing is, council has not been briefed on our Mount Vernon Commons project for quite some time, and I've kind of lost track of where we are on that and where the county is with the transfer of property. And so I'm wondering if we could have a study session or something like that to be briefed on that and kind of get caught up.
We plan to talk about that after our agenda items, and then we can certainly do an agenda on camera too. So, perfect. Okay, any other?
Yeah, I have one topic, and I'm just kind of getting up to speed on this myself and got some correspondence from the county, Skagit County Parks Department about the Skagit County Fair. But long story short, it sounds like the big fair in Whatcom County is run by a nonprofit in Linden. It's called the Northwest Washington Fair. They do a 6-day fair. Typically, it's a regional fair, so larger. They draw about 200,000 people compared to our 4-day fair at 25,000. And historically, they've always been running a day later. I think our fair ends on Saturday. Their fair starts up on Monday, historically, is how that's worked. My understanding is that there is a proposal from the nonprofit to expand their fair length from 6 days to 10 days. And it sounds like they're talking about expanding it forward over the top of our Skagit County Fair. And so obviously this isn't for this year. This is a proposal for 2021. And of course, there's still some, COVID questions about how they'll run fairs, but that's unknowable at the moment. So the concern is that we share a lot of vendors who may not be able to do both at once. We share a lot of performers and specialists and technicians and different things. I'm not aware of all the details, and there's certainly some overlap. There's also different, of course, a lot of community members, a lot of our businesses, a lot of our kids going through farm, FFA and 4-H and other things really rely on our county fair, and it's a fairly large economic driver for the city of Mount Vernon, particularly right in downtown. So I know that there's an effort to try to express the concern about this expansion of the fair on the impact of the viability or impacting the viability of Skagit County Fair. And I know it's timelines are fairly short, and I'm sorry about just learning about this myself recently. I've shared the information I had with the rest of the city council, the mayor, included Peter Donovan on that email. And long story short, I believe it's of the interest of the city to write a letter expressing our concerns, not only to the nonprofit that runs it, but there's also a partnership between the nonprofit and the city of Linden, who provides, police support and other, I don't even know, all the departments that are there. I'm sure public works and streets and all kinds of things. So I believe that we should consider, I'd be curious to hear your feedback, obviously, what your thoughts are. We should consider writing a letter expressing the concerns about the expansion at this time in the direction over the county to the nonprofit and to the city of Linden.
I'd be interested in getting a little more information on what their proposals are. If it's something that's going to have an adverse effect on our business community, I think it's something we probably should take a look at and be proactive in voicing our opinion on.
Yeah, Richard, I just need a little more information. So I'm right there with Mark, definitely.
I know I've seen a few things on Facebook about that just in the last day or so, maybe day and a half. I would agree. I'd like to reach out to maybe Ellen Gamson and talk to her about the impact of the fair on our downtown businesses. I know it's a very big impact though for the kids like in 4-H and FFA because they use that venue to market the animals that they've raised and put money into. So I understand I understand the reasoning that they're concerned about it, but still need just a tiny little bit more information, I think.
Yeah, the email, just to share what I did send, is the email I forwarded to you includes a letter that was written by County Parks Department expressing their concern. It includes an email of support, sharing that concern from the Skagit County commissioners. And there's also I guess a Word document that contains multiple emails, comments to those parties from groups like the Cedar-Woolley Chamber and FFA folks. I don't remember all of them offhand. So that's in your inbox now. So if unless somebody else wants to tackle it, which I'd be happy to step aside, I'm also happy to unless the mayor or somebody else is willing to, and her office draft a letter while folks review the material so that we can expedite it. And I don't know, once we've heard from everybody, Mayor, how you'd like to proceed.
I think if the council would like to pursue this, I'm happy to engage with the county. It's their event and their fair. And if they're asking for support letters, traditionally, they give us the talking points and when those are due and where to send them. So can reach out to Brian or Eric. We'll have Peter do that and then get any information that county gives us. We can forward that back to the city council. If there's a timing issue before our next meeting on the 26th, I can let you all know. But if not, we can have something ready for the 26th. So we'll do a little research if that's what you'd like us to do.
just on the timing, I've heard that there's some sort of announcement that's going to be happening on like Monday. So
Okay.
I'm sorry to share that.
We'll reach out tomorrow. I haven't heard of it, so we'll see what we could do. And if it's the council's consensus, which looking at all of you, I think it is, that we at least throw in some support, we're happy to do that on short notice. Okay. Okay, great. All right, any other council member comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the mayor's report. So I just have a couple of things to share. I know we've got a big agenda, so I'm going to try and be as brief as I can on this too. We did just complete our audit, and we had an exit conference today, which I know Doug's planning on, being able to discuss in detail next time we meet. But also along with completing that, our comprehensive annual financial report is also finished, and so that's published on the website. Wanted to make sure that our public knew that is now published. You can go to our website, you click on the finance department, and you can see all of our annual financial reports. It is a document that's about 144 pages long of all sorts of wonderful detail about every penny of money that the city spends and to provide services. So I find it fascinating myself. Other people maybe not, I don't know. It is prepared by our finance department in accordance with what's called GAAP. So that's generally accepted accounting principles. This is the document that we submit every year for an award, and we're lucky to get that. I think it's about 12 or 13 years running. So that has been submitted, and hopefully we'll hear about our award soon. I stole a couple of slides from Jennifer Johnson from Skagit County Public Health. I did a briefing for the Board of Health today, and all of this information our public can find at skagitcounty.net. There's right at the front page, you can click on COVID information. This is where we're really just going out to our community and trying to share the challenges of moving to a phase to save our businesses and make sure that we're all healthy. This is the very latest data that was put out this afternoon on where we're at with diagnosed cases per 100,000 people. This is one of the data points that's used by the state in order to move jurisdictions between different phases of opening. And as you can see on this graph, we are currently at 107.6 cases per rate of 100,000 population. Where we need to be is no more than 25. So as you can see, as a community, we've got a ways to go. We want to commit and recommit every day to doing what we need to do to stay healthy, try and curb that infection rates. Here's a slide that talks about, where those rates are, or where those rates of infection are coming from. So as you can see, it's kind of spread out, 27% from your own household of an infection. There's workplace at 17%. Long-term care facilities are counted separately at 16%. But here's something, social events, 14%. So we just want to reiterate that if people need information about the COVID crisis, that they can certainly go to skagitcounty.net to find that information. But we really can't stress enough, and I know people get tired of hearing it, but we're living with this pandemic now, and we're living with the threat. So continuing the mask wearing, gathering small and safely. This is from Dr. Libran, 5 people or less per week. Making sure that you're taking precautions even with your gathering, to wearing masks and washing hands, staying home with sick, and of course any resources that you might need, please go to skagitcounty.net. But can't encourage people enough to just take it seriously and be as healthy as possible. And then lastly, we're celebrating a little bit of good news, the new parking lot at Little Mountain Park. It is nearing its completion. It's been taking a little longer. Finally, our contractors got out of there to allow our staff to finish the work. And those finishing details you can see on this picture, it's adding striping, it's adding wheel stops, some split rail fencing, signs, and all of that. So we really are hoping that is going to be done by the end of next week, if not sooner. But even had my own son, who's in his 20s, call me and say, "Hey, Mom, have you seen the new parking lot at Little Mountain?" I had to chuckle, and I said, "Yes, I have, son." But he was excited. He's a mountain biker. Looking forward to that. The new parking lot, it will have 54 safe and accessible parking spaces. Prior to this project, the only parking, as a lot of you know, is just driving the road on the real narrow road or at the very top with 15 spaces. So this is exciting. It will have direct access to hiking and biking trails. And as we all know, Little Mountain Park is about 522 acres of diverse recreational activities with beautiful views and an amazing trail system. So we want to celebrate our parks and, of course, help with our Public Works Department for getting that project done. So excited for that. All right. I think we forgot to add on our agenda requests, but I did note down council member hosts' comments earlier. But is there any other agenda requests? Okay, didn't want to miss that. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and move into our new business tonight. Item A is a public hearing. This is regarding solid waste service rate changes. And item before we see if there's any public input. Let's go.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mayor, would you please look for that table that has the rates to show on the screen, and I'll read some comments here. The City of Mount Vernon has an agreement with Skagit County for solid waste disposal services. Effective June this year, Skagit County increased their disposal fee at the transfer station from $96 per ton to $98 per ton. The disposal fee is scheduled to increase by $2 per ton annually until May 2024. The cost impact of the solid waste division is approximately $3,000 per month. The staff is recommending that the city increase the current collection rates. It's a very small increase, but increase the current collection rates and pass through the disposal fee increase and as they occur through May 2024. So the table we have on the screen summarizes the impact on all the different rate structures. And you can see it's a very small percentage, maybe 1%. And but in order to do that, I mentioned this at the last council meeting. Now with our online stuff, this is a public hearing. We're not asking for any action today. And my understanding, in order to carry that out, the folks have had, the published ordinance that just implements this table. And they were instructed to provide their comments by 5 o'clock. That's my understanding. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong that knows better, but I've checked with everybody, and I think our public hearing part has had no input. And in that case, we're again not asking for any action. We will come before you at the next council meeting with an ordinance. And the ordinance would be just to pass this through and start the actual fee increase October 1 of this year.
Okay, Kevin, you may need to help me. Do I need to go ahead and open a public hearing and then state that there was no public comment and close it, or just our comments is enough? Oh, you're almost unmuted.
Sorry, wrong button. This is a legislative hearing, Mayor, so you don't have to formally open it like this would be for a land use project that's not quasi-judicial.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Esco before we move along? As he stated, we would put this on as an ordinance on the next council meeting.
So I guess my question would be, does this type of action require a open public hearing?
The state law does not require an open public hearing. Under the statute, it requires notice to be given to the ratepayers either through the Herald or through billing prior to action, and I believe Finance Department has provided such notice. The public hearing is something certainly City Council can do. You're not prohibited from doing it, but it's not a requirement by operation of law.
So I guess my concern is we've got it docketed here as a public hearing, but because of these COVID restrictions, it's pretty difficult for the public to show up at a council meeting and participate. And I just want to make sure that everybody's had an opportunity to chime in on this that may have a desire to do so.
Yep. In the not only in the agenda, but I think in the publishing of the ordinance, there was a way for folks to comment. They were given instructions, either email or phone. So I think we've been able to satisfy that. Okay. Any other questions? We'll go ahead and move along. All right, thank you. Item B tonight is an update from the Helping Hands Food.
Madam Mayor.
Oh,
May I
sorry, Mark.
interrupt you for just a moment?
Go ahead.
It dawned on me that when you asked for agenda items, it dawned on me that Councilmember Beaton had asked for an update on the Commons project.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. On to item B, update from the Helping Hands Food Bank, and Peter Donovan's going to introduce our guests tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Helping Hands Food Bank is Skagit County's largest direct emergency food provider, distributing over 3 million pounds of food to 161,000 Skagit County residents in 2019. In addition to food bank services, Helping Hands operates programs such as job internships, community educational classes, grocery rescue, and mobile food. The organization is led by Executive Director Rebecca Larson and Director of Development Nicole Long, both of whom are joining us remotely tonight to update the Mayor and Council on the latest happenings at Helping Hands Food Bank. Nicole and Rebecca, welcome.
Well, thank you for having us tonight. One of the main reasons that we're here tonight is because as we look at our growing numbers through COVID, we realize that 30% of our clientele are coming directly from Mount Vernon. So we wanted to make sure that you were aware of our numbers, what we're doing, and our long-term goals to help feed those directly from Mount Vernon and all over Skagit County. So Nicole is sharing our presentation with you guys currently.
Trying. There we go.
So exactly like Peter said, we are the largest direct emergency food distribution in Skagit County. In 2019, we did serve about 161,000 individuals, and we handed out about 3 million pounds of food. Helping Hands, when we moved into the new facility, and I know some of you guys have been there, we added job training programs, internships, a navigator program to help those. Our ultimate goal is to help people break the cycle of poverty and possibly leave the food bank system, but make sure they have the tools to do that. So now what's going on since COVID in March? Before COVID really got going, we were serving about 750 people through the door, or those are families, not individuals, those are families. And then the first 2 weeks of March, we spiked to about 900 people walking through the door. And I remember thinking, wow, 900 people walked directly across from me as I was putting hand sanitizer on them. And at that moment, we had an emergency board meeting, and we actually closed the facility to kind of regroup and figure out how do we safely hand out 3 million pounds of food to as many people as we do serve. And we knew we couldn't do it in that way and can continue to do it safely. So we, on March 23rd, we started a distribution center at the Food Pavilion parking lot in Cedar Woolley. That day we served about 1,000 families, and or in those 2 days. So we do it Monday and Thursday in Cedar Woolley, and we served about 1,000 families in that week alone. And some of the other things we were finding is we actually lost about 90% of our volunteers through immune compromised, age requirements, whatever their needs were, whatever was the reason we lost them. We knew we were going to have some issues. So we had the same issues in Concrete, Hamilton, Alger, and Anacortes, and they were closing basically because of volunteers, and they just didn't have the, we were losing all the food from the grocery stores. So we really had to come up with a way to really help our community, and we just couldn't do it anymore. So we did go and help them. That's me on that top one at Anacortes, serving them. But we had to take we had to take a whole different approach to what we were doing. So what we did was we called on the National Guard. We wanted to make sure that we had their help. And with the National Guard's help, we were able to reopen Concrete, reopen Hamilton, reopen Alger, reopen Anacortes. We added a Mount Vernon High School distribution where we serve 400 families on a Thursday. And we were able to go to our Cutting Hunger on the weekend program, and we were serving about 1,000 kids a week prior to COVID, and then we were able to open it up to 2,000 bags a week for all the kids in any city. We never turn anybody away. Doesn't matter where they're located. We literally drive all over the county to serve kids that are in need. So our increase, we've increased about 350% increased over the 4 months. And as of today, Nicole and I ran the numbers one more time. We served over 300,000 individuals. And I know that sounds a lot, but it's people are needing to come every day, every distribution, every week. And we don't turn anybody away. We actually don't keep track of who we're serving. We keep track of the boxes, but we know that 30% of them are coming from Mount Vernon just based on our averages that we have. Let's see. So we're up to about 3,600 families each week. The National Guard has been amazing. We were potentially losing the National Guard, and we thank the county commissioners for stepping up and writing a letter to the governor about it. Rick Larson wrote a letter to the governor about it. Robert Gates called the governor about it. And we have had so much support that we now have the National Guard till the 31st of December. And that's all over the state of Washington. So that was a huge, sorry, I have a dog in my house, a huge win for the state of Washington and the food banks. We are also working on the phase program. Our facility is a phase 4 facility. So what we're doing is working on building a mobile drive-through at our facility. So phase 1 and phase 2, we're going to pretty much keep it the same, what we're doing now at the 13 different locations. Phase 2, we're going to start phasing out of the alternate locations, such as Concrete. We have funding that we're going to boost up their safety and give them some things that they need. So that they can safely have people back in their facilities. The Mount Vernon High School distribution, we're working on the school district on what they would like us to do when school opens, and just work with them. We actually deliver to all the life care centers for their employees to help them. It's a project we're working with the Skagit Department of Health. We're going into daycare centers now. That starts next week, where we're delivering to their employees. And that's just to help these essential workers who might need a little help, and we're going to be there for them. We also work with the Skagit Department of Health. As they get COVID positive families, we deliver to about 34 different families that are COVID positive to help them stay out of the public and they're fed. Let's see. We are working close with all our community partners, from Burlington to churches in Lake Stevens to Food Lifeline. They are providing food. Grocery Outlet was the only people that helped us when we had no food. They were the only grocery store that would allow us to buy food from them. So what's next? So we're going to continue doing our mobile food. Our goal is to do the mobile food directly to people's houses until there's a vaccine. So that might take a long time, but our goal is to keep those families who are positive or very immune compromised home and safe, and are Cutting Hunger on the weekend with the schools just announcing what they're doing in the last couple days. We're going to continue to always say yes to serving as many kids that need this extra food directly to their houses, even through school. Our emergency mobile food programs, they will continue through phase 3 as it'll take a while for us to get into phase 4. We know that. So the reality and the impact of what we're doing is prior to COVID, there was a report that United Way put out a couple years ago about the ALICE families that are, there was 43% of families that were one paycheck away from needing services like ours. And at this point, we all know the economic benefit, what's going to happen with the economy. And so we want to be there. So we are definitely bulking up on food and programs and volunteers, and with the National Guard, the efficiencies of what we can do so we can feed more people with less. We're going to continue to expand every program we have, and again, never say no. When you think about a food bank, you don't necessarily think about us as a revenue generator or income generator, or so we are seen as a charity and not essential necessarily. And so we've had an economic study done at Western, and each family receives about $43 worth of food from a food bank. And that money is redistributed back into the economy. So the money that they didn't have to spend is going back into housing and medical and fuel so they can go back to work. And we are going to attach the report. It's really interesting about how, and it also has the Mount Vernon Food Bank on it as well in this report. So it's very interesting on the impact that food banks make on your economy, actually. So how can you help? The biggest thing that we learned is I've gotten multiple phone calls from multiple agencies in Washington saying, could you not have your Skagit County people call and say they want to know why the National Guard's leaving? Over 400 Skagitonians called the WSDA, the governor's office, demanding the National Guard to stay, and that is really powerful. It was so powerful to hear that. Our ask was, keep us on your thoughts, keep us when you hear about the things that we need, make phone calls, call people, make sure that our legislators know that this is a lot of weight for a charity to hold and lift on their shoulders. We are currently over 3 million pounds, and we're halfway through the year. Last year, we did 3 million pounds handed out for the whole year. So this is a very heavy lifting for a charity. So we need to make sure that Skagit County is heard loudly that we need to feed our people, and we're going to feed our people, and we need to help to do that. We want to make sure that emergency food is thought of as not, well, let's just put it on the charities. Emergency food should be thought of in every emergency plan. That's something that we've been talking about with the governor's office. We have some ideas on what that looks like long term, but having our food thought as an absolute necessary item to have for everyone, not just children, not just seniors, but everyone. We need to make sure that that is a priority. Again, 30% of our clients are coming out of Mount Vernon, and that is a huge number for how many people are hungry in your community. In the future, policies, makings, procedures to respond to emergencies and pandemics. We know that this is the beginning of something. There's more down the road. There's more emergencies down the road. And coming to us with ideas that you can help us with building these emergency programs, that's what we need your guys' help with. Volunteers and advocates. You are the advocates. We need volunteers, board members, volunteer drivers, just to get the word out that if you have people in your wards that are hungry and need help, where do they go? Where do they get food? Where do they get training? Where do they send? We have teenagers. We've had 14 teenagers go through our job training internship program and get jobs. Those are the kind of things that we need you guys help with. So I'm gonna turn you over to Nicole, and she's gonna give you a little bit more information of, because I don't want to talk. I don't want to hear myself talk the whole time.
We just more or less wanted to take this opportunity to present to you guys kind of how we've responded in midst of crisis and just really express the uncoverings we've seen. We, myself personally, have seen the cracks in the system, if you will. For example, emergency food that was promised to us by Washington State Department of Agriculture hasn't fully arrived yet. We've only received a pallet of refried beans. This is outside of our normal temporary food assistance that we receive. That's based off of prior year numbers. We're talking when the pandemic first hit and government went down and approved funds for that emergency family first program. We're still waiting. And we're just noticing items like that, policies, so forth. And we're just realizing, how do we affect change by becoming advocates of our own and coming to you guys to share our experiences and offer our knowledge and information of what we've seen to help prepare for future instances. I would love to say, I hope we'll never see another pandemic again, but you know, there is potentially ways that our community can be affected by natural disasters or anything else. And lovingly, I would hope that my children's children has a policy or a playbook, if you will, on how to respond to a pandemic, because we didn't get one. So we had at Helping Hands 3 weeks worth of emergency food on hand to feed the county. We just thought this will be great, or it was, I'm sorry, to feed Cedar-Woolley. Like every citizen in Cedar-Woolley, we have emergency food for 3 solid weeks. And like Rebecca shared, we experienced in that first month alone, our neighboring food banks upriver, over in Anacortes, just in our own backyard with Mount Vernon. There were families in crisis, things they had never experienced before. And we didn't want to say no. So we stepped in and that food was gone within 2 weeks. So we are just here to take initiative to be a part of that conversation, to help share what we know, and really just want to say that we're not charity, we're essential. And so we just want to involve and help everyone get invested into our communities and help in hunger, and not just our crisis, but beyond.
And I think the biggest thing we want to leave you with is we want to be a resource for you guys when you're talking about your emergency plans for Mount Vernon. Please bring us to the table, ask as many questions. We have so much information and data to share with. So please remember us and use us as a resource. So thank you guys for listening tonight. Is there any questions that anybody has?
I have a question. What is your current food supply at?
So when we're doing the amount we're doing, I'm keeping about 2 to 3 weeks of food. When the government commodities come in, it lasts about a week. So then the other 3 weeks I am purchasing from every resource I can possibly find.
Okay, so I would have a question for Peter. We've received some CARES money. We've received some CDBG funds, COVID related. I don't know that there's any funds that haven't been allocated already, but if there's additional funds that may be coming in, or maybe we've got some funds that haven't been allocated, is there some way to allocate some of those funds to the Helping Hand Food Bank?
I believe there would be, council member. I would have to double check on that, but and that's also if more funding comes our way, because what has come in has been committed at this point. But yeah, absolutely, we would want to take a look at that.
And we are currently working with the Mount Vernon Food Bank and the Distribution Center to request FEMA to reimburse us for a lot of food. It's only like 25%, but 25% is better than nothing. So that's something that we're working on as well to support all the food banks as well.
Yeah, when you consider food costs have risen the way they are, 25% is huge. It used to cost $2 to feed a family of 4 for 1 week. At the peak of, I would say the peak of what we've seen so far in this pandemic, it was costing $10 to feed a family of 4 per week just because of the accessibility to acquire the food we wanted to serve out to our families. That cost is now settled closer to $4.50. So it's still 2.5 times higher than what we had budgeted for. And our grocery rescue, which is dependent on rescuing a lot of that food out of a landfill and reserve back to our families, that took a massive hit in the beginning as people rushed to the grocery store to acquire what they needed to get through the pandemic. And it's slowly coming back. And what we're seeing coming back, as much as I love a good cinnamon roll from Costco, it's not sustainable for a family of 4 to pass along just only that to them. So we are still needing to purchase and acquire produce and protein and dairy and so forth to ensure that we are nutritiously feeding our community and not just giving them a pack of cinnamon rolls and calling it a day.
Mhm.
So, Peter, don't we have a process in place to make an application? So maybe this organization would prepare some kind of a package, show how it would benefit the citizens or those in need in Mount Vernon, and have that to you so that if we have some additional funds come in, we could look at allocating that.
Yes, and more than just letting them know what that process is, I will reach out to them as soon as we do get notice of a second round of funding from HUD.
Thank you very much.
Any
Is there
questions
any
from
other
council?
questions?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. So I think Becky, you've done without the pandemic, your leadership in the food bank has been just remarkable, and I know you're an inspiration for our Mount Vernon Food Bank and regionally. So I want to just thank you for that. The service and the hard work shows, and it's amazing what you've been able to do for our families. And so thank you for all of that work, and Nicole as well. Appreciate your coming and sharing with our community and our council tonight. And then any other council questions or comments?
Just I want to say a big thank you because I was part of this great resource. We've been serving families since the pandemic started, and absolutely all the families got what they needed. And I know all these people, they worked so hard to provide food, like Nicole was talking and saying, not just a bag of donuts. People got protein, dairy, vegetable, fruits, all of what they need in the kitchen. Thank you very much. And we were having all those blessings from them. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Thank you, Nicole. And thank you, Becky, for all your hard work and providing us here in Mount Vernon all your support.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our next item. Again, ladies, thank you. And I know Peter will be in touch with you. So, all right.
Thank you.
Great. So item C tonight is the approval to waive right-of-way fees for restaurants. And Peter is going to present this item.
Thanks, Mayor. Council, you're well aware of restrictions placed on restaurants. In order to open safely, local restaurants have had to reduce their capacity and limit the number of patrons that they serve. And these limitations have contributed to a reduction of revenue for our restaurants. And some have observed that expanding that seating capacity by occupying a portion of right-of-way, that's sidewalks in this case, in front of their businesses can help them to both increase capacity while creating a dining environment that's physically distanced and safe for their guests. Expanding services by occupying public right-of-way normally requires a permit to ensure that businesses address public safety and transportation needs. This Type B right-of-way permit, as it's called, carries with it a fee in excess of $100. And while the permit itself provides a necessary function of safety, Mayor Boudreau and her Development Services Director have noted that the fee for this permit may be unnecessarily burdensome for businesses that are currently under a number of state and federal restrictions which have added to their growing lists of operating expenses. And so it's for this reason that staff is proposing an ordinance that waives Type B permit fees to the city for businesses wishing to expand their services into the adjacent right-of-way. The ordinance goes further to waive the fees of any establishments that have already recently paid for Type B permit fees in anticipation of the state's Phase 2 restrictions. So the mayor and her staff recognize this as an opportunity for the city to work supportively with local business owners and to remove a financial burden that may prevent the further growth and success of local commerce. And it's with those motives that staff is recommending council approval of this proposed ordinance to waive Type B permit fees for local businesses.
All right. Any questions for Peter about this or comments?
I have actually had the opportunity to work with another municipality on this for one of my own businesses, and it's absolutely a great program. It's a good alternative for the business owners, and it keeps sales tax revenue generated for the city. So waiving this type of a fee, I think it will only benefit the city in the long run. Otherwise, these businesses are completely shut down and can't generate any sort of income. So I would wholeheartedly move that we approve this ordinance.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion by Mark and a second by Gary. Any other discussion?
I was just going to say that I think it's a fantastic idea, and I've enjoyed seeing some vendors out on the sidewalk now, and I look forward to seeing more as we move this forward.
Any other comments?
Yes.
All right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Iris.
Thank you for supporting the local business in the city, because we have seen a few businesses they've been closed, and to see things like that, it gives a little hope to see we are doing something for the small and local business, like Cavallo Village closed. It was my favorite store. You know, I don't have any place anymore to go for my shopping. You know, it's kind of hard to see that. Yeah, and just to see opening this restaurant. Thank you for the. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Take care of a local business.
Thanks, Iris. All right. Well, there is a motion, a second. This is ordinance 3806. A motion by Mark, second by Gary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm actually really excited that we'll be able to refund businesses that have already paid that. So appreciate it. Okay. Item D tonight is a renewal of an agreement for a CDBG consultant. And again, Peter Donovan will present. Peter.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, each year, Council approves the City of Mount Vernon CDBG Action Plan, and the plan details how the city will utilize federal HUD dollars that are allocated to the city. A portion of these federal dollars are reserved for administrative expenses associated with successfully operating our CDBG program. For the past several years, as part of its action plan, Council has approved a contracted consultant to advise, monitor, and track the city's program. And before you this evening is a proposed agreement to renew this contract between the City of Mount Vernon and Paul Schisler and Associates. This one-year agreement is for $36,000 and will be paid entirely out of the city's federal CDBG funding. And the agreement expires on June 30th, 2021. Staff is recommending a council motion to authorize the mayor to enter into this agreement with Paul Schisler and Associates Incorporated.
Any questions for Peter on this?
A quick one. So is it 10% the amount that the grant allows for administration?
I believe it's 15, and there's actually a little bit beyond that that's allowed, and beyond that for the COVID relief funds as well.
Okay. This is a pretty significant percentage of that. So, and I've looked at the scope of work, and they're doing an awful lot. It's pretty expensive, but that answered my question. Thank you.
Lots of federal hoops to jump through, and they ensure that we're jumping through the right ones.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with PSAI.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Melissa and a second by Mary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item E tonight, it is a bid award for wastewater treatment plant administrative building remodel and addition. And Esco Bell is here to present this item. Esco.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff recommends a motion be made by council authorizing the mayor to award the construction contract for a wastewater treatment plant admin building remodel addition project to Axtham Construction of Mount Vernon, Washington, in the amount of $1,125,627 plus tax for a total of $1,223,556.55. This project has been identified for several years in the city's capital improvement plan for needed wastewater treatment plant facilities. The project is fully funded under the current wastewater utility budgets and rate structure. The existing admin facility was constructed in 1974, remodeled in 1988 for the needs of a staff then of 7 full-time treatment plant operators. Over the years, the wastewater system has been expanded from what it was needed for a city of 17,000 about back then to today's population of 36,000, and a staff currently of 13 operators plus part-time staff. More space provided by this facility is important for the existing and future requirements of our staff. Wastewater utility funds are collected from user fees that can only be spent for the purposes of operating and building the infrastructure of the city's wastewater system, such as the proposed administration building remodel addition. 5 bids were received on August 4th, with a low bid provided by Axtham Construction. The bids range in price from what I said at 1.1 million up to the top of 1.282 million. The low bid from Axtham was responsive and prepared in accordance with the contract documents. We originally estimated the project was around 875,000. Earlier this year, when we had the detailed designs done, we had a professional estimator go through it, and actually their construction estimate was very close to what we ended up with. Their estimate was 1.15 million. Axtham Construction is a reputable local contractor with proven good performance in constructing facilities such as this project. Staff believes the bid result reflects the real market cost to build this important facility based on the good response of 5 bids and a total variation from least to highest of less than $160,000, a variation of less than 20% from top to bottom. Considering the economic effects of the current pandemic crisis, which would favor lower market costs, and the building construction market still at the level observed, I cannot see there's any advantage in delaying the construction of the facility. Staff recommends council award the construction bid to Axtham Construction to allow the city to proceed with construction of this project.
All right, questions for Esco on this?
I just want to say that I think that it's great that, they went through the bid process. There were five bids, and it landed with a local construction company. And so I think that's pretty cool. And it's for quite a large amount of money. So with that, if no one has any other questions, I'll make a motion that council award the construction bid to Axtham Construction.
Second.
All right. Motion by Melissa and a second by Mark. Any other? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you so much. And I'm
Thank you very much.
Pretty excited. Just what Melissa had said, it was kind of fun to see that money's going to stay right here. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
According to law and all that good stuff about bidding. So
and congrats to Gary and his team too. Well deserved over a long time coming.
So, all right, great. Thank you. Moving on to item F tonight is an agreement for the 2020. Wait, oops, sorry, there's a typo. It's for the Washington Conservation Corps, and Chesterfield is here to present this item. Blaine.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Yeah, that was supposed to be 2021. I noticed that typo myself, but right. They go on, the state goes on a calendar year that's similar to the school district. So they're into their 2021 season starting September. But that being said, the Washington Conservation Corps agreement, WCC 2023, the recommended action, staff recommends the council approve the detention pond maintenance interagency agreement with the Washington State Department of Ecology to have the Washington Conservation Corps perform vegetation maintenance on drainage facilities. The agreement would be for up to 8 weeks of Washington Conservation Corps crew time with costs not to exceed $37,760. As most of the council already knows, but some of the public may not, since 2015, the city has had great success using the Washington Conservation Corps for facility maintenance. The Washington Conservation Corps crew comes with a supervisor, 5 crew members, a crew rig, hand tools, and equipment for drainage facility maintenance. The city has approximately 147 drainage facilities that we are responsible for maintaining. There's more facilities than that in the city, but that is the ones we're responsible for. Approximately 40% of the drainage facilities require small hand tools and hand maintenance. A lot of our other facilities, we can get big equipment in there to mow and take care of the vegetation. The Washington Conservation Corps Community Service Program provides a great opportunity to complete some of this work and while keeping the costs down. So that really has worked out well for us over the years. Staff recommends that the council authorize the mayor to sign the interagency agreement with the Washington State Department of Ecology.
Great. Any questions for Blaine on this?
Blaine, this is in the 2020 budget, correct? Or will be in the 2020?
Yeah. Yes, it's in the 2020 budget, and I'm going to be putting it into the new budget in the upcoming year. So
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the interagency agreement with the Washington State Department of Ecology.
Second.
All right, so a motion by Aaron and a second by Iris. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item G tonight is to approve a ground cell tower lease agreement. And again, Blaine Chesterfield is here to present this one. Blaine.
yes, Kevin and I both worked extensively on this, working with the team over at STC5 on getting this agreement. This is the Fire Station 2 site, and it is the most northerly tower on that site. There's 2 out there. The recommended action that the city council by motion authorize the mayor to enter into a cell ground lease agreement with STC5 LLC. Basically the terms of this agreement are $20,000 annually, which looking at this and analyzing it looked like a really fair amount per year. This is an increase of 15% over the current rents that they currently pay us for this site, and it is a ground lease. This is their own tower at that site. The terms are for 10 years and 2 5-year options. The rent shall increase 3% every year annually through the lease term, and they're paying us an administrative fee of $3,500 for this negotiation. Usually our standard template says $2,500, but whenever the negotiations drag out a little bit more, we will adjust that factor depending on how much extra time that takes for our staff. There's new insurance and identification in this agreement. The performance bond of $30K to secure the payment of rents, and the faithful performance of the agreement, and liquidated damages of $250 for a lack of notice to the fire department at any time that they go out there. We've had issues with that in the past, so that has been put into this agreement. And I got to say that Kevin was very thorough on this and did an excellent job. We spent quite a bit of time working with their lawyers on this. So.
All right, any questions for Blaine on this particular item?
Yeah, I got a question, Blaine. You know, in the section A of the lease, it talks about the being able to sublease that tower. Do you have any idea how money they would possibly get if they started adding different leases to that pole that we have or they have, and how does that compare to our price charging what we're charging them?
I don't know that I got all the details you're looking for, Gary, but what I can tell you is that they own that pole and it only has a limited amount of capacity on it in the first place. Any new tenants they would bring into that site would have to negotiate a ground lease with us because they would have equipment on the ground most likely to support the equipment in the air. So we would get additional revenues on any ground lease that might be negotiated for that additional equipment.
On this pole or another new pole?
No, this would be if they put anything on this pole, we wouldn't be getting rent for stuff that was put on their pole. What we would get additional rents for is they would have to have supporting equipment on the ground because the equipment up on the pole, they have to go across to our site. They would have to have probably some sort of a shed, equipment shed on the ground. And if they put an equipment shed on our property, we would get ground lease at that point in time.
All right.
I'll just add, Gary, it's probably they wouldn't be very forthcoming on what they're charging. They'd probably say that's proprietary information they'd give another competitor a business advantage. We do own our own towers, and we do lease those as well, space on our towers. So we have a fairly good sense of the market. And if we have questions, we have that consultant to help us with a business judgment issue of whether or not we're playing in the sandbox in terms of price negotiations. We lend on them. They are ones that are actively involved in markets, which is actually fairly fluid for this type of business.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right.
I'd make a motion to approve the ground cell tower lease agreement.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Gary and a second by Melissa. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council.
Thank you, Blaine. All right, moving on. Item H tonight is a bid award for the North 19th Street Stream Rehabilitation. And Bill Bullock, our city engineer, is here to present. Bill.
Good evening, Council. I have a few items with you tonight. So first, we brought updates on this project to Council in the past. This is the sinkholes we were experiencing on the Gulshan Creek over on North 19th to basically remediate that old steel culvert that's been rusting out and creating the soil movement and creating the sinkholes. Part of that is we have to rehabilitate that length of stream as well. So that's why we're calling this a stream rehabilitation project. So we opened bids on this project last Wednesday. Engineer's estimate was $186,000 to accomplish this work, and knock on wood, we got some really good bids. So the low bidder on this project was Oceanside Construction out of Bellingham for $139,000. High bid was from CRV of $257,000. We had 5 total bidders, and so a pretty good range of bids. 3 of those bidders were under the engineer's estimate. So we're excited to get a good price on this project, and we intend to start sometime likely the week of September 1st. Our goal is to be out of the stream and have all the in-stream work done by October 1st, but there's some flexibility in there, and to be finished up with the project by October 15th. The whole goal is to get out of there before the next fall season / winter season storms come through, so that we don't have any other risk to the adjacent properties and to our infrastructure. Any questions?
I have a question. I've not had the benefit of seeing any of the formal designs, but I'm curious, is there any vegetation being planted? And
Sure. So yes, the basic design for this project, including abandoning the existing culvert, and it includes strengthening the slopes with basically a large rock gravity wall on both sides. Adding in stream cobbles and different gravels that will keep the erosion down in the stream as it reestablishes itself past where this culvert was. And then at this time, we're going to, I believe it's a conservation district, will come through and provide the plantings. But part of the plantings are part of the WDFW permit as part of the mitigation for being in stream. And so, yes, this will be planted with appropriate plantings, both upland plantings and whatnot where they belong. But at this time, we're going to be planting them. There's a risk of having this project be too late to do plantings that will be viable. So that might happen next spring when we have the best chance of establishment.
Yeah, I'd follow the conservation district's lead on how and when, so that's flexible. I just wanted to make sure that that was at least some minimum cover, because as you open it up, it's gonna get hotter, and streams are getting hotter already. So thank you. That was my question. And otherwise, unless there's questions, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the agreement.
I'll take that as a motion.
Great.
Second.
Thank you, Mary. So motion by Richard and a second by Mary. Any other questions? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Item I tonight is a bid award for the 2020 Street Improvements Project. And Bill is going to introduce this item, and Eska might have a few things to say about it that we had talked about, but we'll go ahead. So go ahead, Bill.
So thank you, Mayor. So this is going to get a little bit complex to talk through, but basically we went out for bid for our paving project or street improvements project earlier this spring. And with COVID, the anticipated effect to our budget, we put the project on hold. Lakeside was a little bidder, and they have been kind enough to extend our acceptance of the bid award for several months so that we could get a handle on what our revenue outlook was going to be. And that solidified a little bit last month. So this is what we're going to try to do. Let's see here, where do I start? So we have about an estimated $970,000 that can be allocated to this type of work from our TBD fund. And so awarding schedules A and B from the bid is about $923,000. What we want to do is not spend all that money and have basically equivalent of some being left in some reserve, so that as this whole situation advances, we can, like I said, have a little bit in reserve. So what we're proposing is for council to make a motion authorizing the mayor to award schedules A and B. And then likely what we will do to keep our spending at around $700,000 is probably delete the Little Mountain Road section of Schedule A, which is about $246,000, which will bring us down to about the range of $700,000 overall. We can do that. That's within the limits of, generally you have a 75% threshold for reducing work before you have to start renegotiating costs per the standard specifications. This puts us right in the neighborhood of 75% of those costs. So we feel we can do this contractually and still end up with a sizable amount of our overlay program being accomplished to a local company again. Lakeside's out of Anacortes in Skagit County, and still make headway on some of that street preservation effort that we would like to continue to do every year in order to kind of keep up with street maintenance. So
I'll add real quick,
Sure.
Bill, on that.
Yes, ma'am.
So one of the thought processes in our conversations around what we could look at removing, it's not only just to have our little cushion because we still have 5 months of collection, right? But the Little Mountain Road project, you may know that the PUD is doing got funding for design of water line, and they anticipate using that road. So we were like, well, how, when is that going to go? Like, how is the timing? We don't want to do a road and then have that, I mean, I think y'all can follow me on that one. And so staff had some conversation with PUD. Yes, they only have design money at this point, but that is a very motivated project with the water issue. And so I wouldn't think that that's going to take 10 years to do. Maybe it'll be 2 years to do. So that was some of the thought processes around awarding the bid as the schedules were presented to be bid on, and then removing that the 25% that we could do. And so that's why we landed on the Little Mountain Road. So
could I ask?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Just a quick clarifying question. I'm having a little difficulty tracking sort of timeline. It's 2020 street improvements, but it mentions 2021, and it's getting late in the season. Can you just explain timing?
Sure. Sorry, what was meant by the 2020? Deleting Little Mountain Road, that particular segment of this schedule will likely be put under our 2021 program. Sorry about that, tongue twister. And so that's what we would do with it. We wouldn't delete it and never do it. We would simply move it forward to the next paving program or as appropriate from that standpoint.
And otherwise, the balance of the work is still scheduled for this year.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and I would just say that I'm very happy if we end up being able to do $700,000 worth of work, and we can make it work just the way it described, and that's much better than what I thought we'd be, which is no overlay program this year. And boy, that is a fundamental program. So this is good, in my view. And we'll do it this year. It'll be right up to the tail end of the season, but we're getting a good price.
Just one other note is the engineering estimate for schedules A and B with 2019 prices was 1.1 million roughly, and this is about $920,000 in the bid. So we got about a 20% efficiency, if you will, from contract prices between last year and this year. So we are getting a very good price on pavement. I haven't seen prices on pavement like this in 10 years.
And I'm really bad at sharing my screen, and I'm trying to share the picture.
And I apologize for that map being so microscopic, but
I think we've got a pretty good overview with the descriptions that were included in our packet. The Transportation Benefit District was established by the voters to do these paving projects. I also think it makes really good sense that if PUD is going to be putting paving up or doing work up on Little Mountain Road, to not do any paving. The one thing we always hear from the public is, geez, you guys laid down a new road, and 6 months later, PUD comes through and digs it up and puts something else in, and it's all patched. So it's kind of nice that we may be able to have that relationship with PUD so we can do the job once and not only save money, but have a nice surface when we're done. I'm happy that we're able to move forward with some of this, and I would move the approval of the contract with Lakeside Paving. Lakeside's done a good job for us for a number of years, so we know it's going to be good quality work.
I'll second that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so Mark, motion by Mark, and we'll give a second to Melissa. All right, any other questions? All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, ESCO, for being as patient as possible while we put you off until we knew a little bit better.
No problem, Mayor. I'm very happy and grateful for this. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, item J tonight is approval of an agreement with Puget Sound Energy, and Bill is going to present this too. Bill.
Thank you. So this is the Colshan Trail project. Right now we've got funding obligated by Washington State Department of Transportation. It's a federal TAP program, which is Transportation, oh boy, I think Transportation Alternatives Program. It's the old enhancement program from back in the day. This, of course, is installing lighting along Colshan Trail, and PSE, formerly Intelight, now they call themselves PSE Pole Services, installs and maintains the majority of our streetlights in the city. And so they are integral to this project. This is an agreement with PSE Intelight for installing the 25 streetlights along the Colshan Trail. Shortly, we will be going out to bid. We still have one more washed out approval for the actual design. COVID has made a whole bunch of contract management challenges. I'll tell you that right now. But once we get that through that final process, we'll be going out to bid for a general contractor to install the conduit, the bases, the handholds, that type of thing, and then Puget Sound Energy will come through and install the actual lights and pull the wire to power those lights. So this agreement approves PSE Pole Services portion of this project, and I'm hoping October, early November, we have a completed light system on Colshan Trail between the 18th Street and Habitat for Humanity.
Great. Any questions for Bill on this particular project? I do want to say kudos to staff. This was, we had an opportunity come up to be able to jump in and use those TAP funds. And so they've really pulled heaven and earth to put the Mount Vernon in a position to take advantage of someone else's inability to do that. So thank you Bill for doing that and pushing it through. So.
This is a great project and much needed. I don't remember the genesis of it, but I have a feeling the mayor had some strong hand in that, and so I just wanted to thank you all. This is going to be a great addition.
And hopefully we'll keep going and get the rest of it lit, but this particular section is great to do. So yes, thank you.
I totally agree, and I'd move to approve the agreement with lighting with PSE.
Second.
Motion by Gary and a second by Aaron. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last agenda item is just for the good of the order, and we have our kind of standing COVID pandemic response discussion. I don't have really anything to share much new news, although Doug and I have been working already on our discussion for August 26th, where we've promised to come back and kind of share mid-year our recommendations for budget, our recommendations for the CARES funding, and all of that. So you'll have complete detailed documents Friday with your packet next week to anticipate that discussion on the 26th. Any other comments or questions that you may have though before we adjourn into an executive session? So.
I hate to do this, but I do have one quick question since we have ESCO here. ESCO, I seem to recall that the city has a project where we treat our detention ponds for mosquitoes.
Yes,
Don't we do something? Have we done that in a while? Is that something every other year?
You know what? We do it every year, and Blaine will tell any more details if you need more. But we go out there every year and we treat the catch basins while we're doing our normal maintenance and that sort of thing. We drop in this larvicid, which is, it's pretty benign for all other things, but it's quite effective. We've had a few more complaints this year in different places, but we are definitely doing the program. Blaine, I don't know if there's anything you want to help out on here about that.
Yeah, we put the larvicide down, and we usually start with West Mount Vernon and hit the downtown, and then we'll go to the parts of the city that maybe we didn't get to in the previous year, and hit those first, and then work our way around. And then we can't usually quite get to the whole city every year. we just don't have enough staff to do all of it with all the other things they do. But we get probably 3/4 of the city every year, and it's been pretty effective. There has been more complaints this year, but when I first started here, the first 2 years, we didn't have a program, and boy, we had so many complaints. It was driving council and everybody kind of crazy every time we got to mosquito season because we had so many people complaining about it, and it really that has seemed to help over the years, but I have noticed an uptick this year.
Thanks. I thought we were still doing it. I just wanted to double check. So thank you.
I wonder, I think a lot of people have talked about how many mosquitoes there are this year and that it's probably related to the really wet spring we had, kind of got them off to a frenzy. And maybe in years where we have, really rainy springs, we could think about putting extra effort in to get around. But appreciate the question. They're thick as thieves around here.
I have had several people concerned about spraying, wanting to make sure we're not fogging, because a lot of people apparently have allergies or other issues with that fogging. So I have had people say, hey, you guys aren't, I know you got a mosquito program. You guys aren't fogging, are you? And I've been able to assure them that we don't generally do that. I do believe that the Parks Department may do some of that when there's a 4th of July celebration over at Edgewater, but that's very limited to just the 4th of July celebration and Edgewater. And it's just once a year usually, but that's about all we ever do with the fogging.
What I'd say is, I'll get together with the staff and we'll go check whether there's something else we can maybe up what we're doing right now. See if there's anything we can do that makes sense to do with our current program that might help. We'll just run through where this is coming from the best we can and see if there's anything to do. How about that? And I'll report back to you next time. And if anybody's got any feedback for us that way. Anyway, we'll get together and see if we should do something different to up some effort.
I would ask if the majority of the complaints are coming from one particular area or not.
Yeah, that's what we need to kind of figure that out here.
I haven't noticed that this year, that it's been one specific area for me anyway, but I don't know that we've totally analyzed that yet either.
Yeah, but we can also talk to, exactly where we've treated, and we can look at the details a little bit and see if there's any way we can help.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, if there's no other discussion, we'll go ahead and we've ended our regularly scheduled agenda items. So I'll ask our city attorney if there's a need for an executive session this evening.
Yes, I'd invite the mayor and members of city council to enter into an executive session to discuss with legal counsel enforcement action, litigation, or potential litigation to which the city is or is likely to become a party, when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in either adverse legal or adverse financial consequence to the city, and moreover, to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase, when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of increased price. 15 minutes, no action after.
Okay, then with that, we'll be adjourned with our council meeting at 8:04.